Hey everyone, welcome to CresTV, your regular roundup of all things UC and AV, and today we're talking about networking. Now, I'm not really a networking expert. I know enough. I know enough to get myself in trouble. But when it comes to networking and AV and UC, there's one provider, there's one manufacturer that we here at Crestron go to and partner with, and that's our friends at Netgear. So I wanted to pull out John Henkel from over in California. John, how you doing?
Hi, Neil. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So John, just explain what you do at Netgear, and then we'll get into what Netgear are doing with AV and why Netgear. But just introduce yourself to the audience and what you do.
Sure. My official title is the Director of Product Marketing for our business division. I was brought in about 3.5 years ago now to really focus on the Pro AV market. So that's my role.
Now, interesting, you say Pro AV, because we talk about network. And again, we were talking kind of beforehand about some old stuff I did in networking and multicasting back in the day. But networking is LAN and VLANs. I'm going to just get myself way out of my depth now, but just for buzzwords. But we're talking about Pro AV here. This is a different world of switches and routers and I won't say anything. IP addresses and TCP/IP and all that kind of good stuff. Where does AV come into this? What's the deal with that?
Well, it started years ago, and I always have to give props to my coworker, Laurent Massia. He's the who I call the father of Pro AV at Netgear. He's the product line manager for our managed switches and our Pro AV design team. He saw this transformation, as we've been talking about for many years, of AV over IP. So it's really just mainly replacing that matrix switch of the old days, the circuit-based systems of matrix switching. Take that out and put a network switch in the middle, and it's basically the same type of setup where you have AV signals now going to an encoder through a network and back to a decoder. I mean, it's really kind of replacing that traditional model, but the basics are still kind of the same. It's over a network, just different.
Yeah, I mean, it did again back in the day when before I joined any of the kind of video conferencing world. I used to get involved in kind of multicast streaming, and we were doing IP unicast and multicast over sort of 100 base T, sort of just standard switch networks, and it kind of worked. And again, we were sending multiple streams out across IPTV networks, but we were just using off the shelf IT switches and IT routers. There was nothing special about it. But nowadays, as you say, video over networks is second nature, and again, it's almost replacing traditional cabling like HDMI and SDI and things like that. When you can send high quality, high res over a piece of Cat6 cable or fiber cable and over an IP network, and you're not, there's no distance limit. We used to say, well, you can send it 1 meter, you can send it a million miles. It's IP. You just send it.
Yep. So a lot of things make me think of a lot of things in that conversation.
Yeah, sorry.
Number one is we had IPTV forever. You're right, like hotels and everything else was IP based for a long time. We also then had HD based T systems, and that people thought was networking or over IP, but it really wasn't. That's a point to point setup, and you can't go through a regular network switch. And I'm like you, I'm not really a networking guy. I came in as part of the AV team, so I've learned a bunch the last few years. The intricacies of multicasting video and audio is not easy either, over a network are pretty intense. And that's where Netgear has really seen some growth, is that we've actually paid attention to this and made things easier. So there's something called IGMP, Internet Group Multicast Protocol.
I know that one.
IGMP is how you get multicast out, right? Yeah. I think I got that right, huh? Speaking of dropping acronyms. So the default settings for IGMP weren't always the best for systems in that, like, you might flood a network. You might plug in an encoder to a switch and then bring your network down because it's going everywhere. So what we did at Netgear was say, okay, let's make a couple of tweaks to that. And what we call Netgear IGMP Plus on our switches means when you plug an encoder into our switch, it's not going to flood your network. IT people are very thankful now that we did that. It's those little things that AV people can now depend on with us to make sure it's configured properly.
And I think that's when I originally looked at the sort of Netgear Pro AV equipment, one of the things that I got from it was, you're saying, the IT people are thankful, but also there's a lot of AV people out there that know cameras and broadcast. Again, your background history we were talking before, broadcast and TV. You're not a network guy. One of the things that struck me on the Netgear was there's almost like, and I'll simplify it, but there's almost like that wizard of like, are you going to do video streaming? Yes, next. Are you going to do this? Next. And it just auto configures. So if you are an AV person, if you're used to hanging and banging, LCD TV plasma screens on the walls, and you're used to, doing SDI matrices and all the rest of it, you can actually now go and take a Netgear Pro AV switch, run through a rudimentary wizard, and actually then have something up and running. And that kind of really lowers the barrier of entry for this kind of technology.
Absolutely. And it's not just the AV people who are applauding that, it's the IT people as well, because things are set up properly. So let me back up for those that don't know what that is. So we put into our newer M4250 series switches, the ones that look more like an AV appliance. Ports in the back, generally, they're kind of gray, they're cool looking, look good in AV rack. They have an AV GUI. So when you log in, you don't have the traditional IT-based GUI with a bunch of web pages, and you got to go put in a bunch of different settings in 20 different menus. Our AV GUI uses profiles on a per port basis. So if you're doing NVX, you come in and you click on the profile for NVX, and you select which ports you're going to plug in your encoders, your NVX encoders and decoders to, and you hit enter. And that's really it. I mean, there's some short videos I did on it. People are like, that's it? That's really it. You can do more. But we made it that dead simple. And then I know that more experienced IT people are going, okay, come on, I want the old GUI. I want to go command line.
Yeah.
And you can do that. And I get it. That's fine. You trust that. It's worked for you. You still have command line. It's still a full-fledged switch. It's not like we dumbed the thing down.
Yeah.
But what I find and hearing from people at trade shows that are IT people, they set it up with the IT GUI or command line, and they go to the AV GUI or vice versa, and they start seeing, oh, that's actually doing the right thing, which is cool. And you can be assured there's no human error, transposition of a couple of numbers. Everything's just there. And we've qualified that with Crestron, with whoever else, with Dante. We've taken the time for our techs and their techs to approve it and certify it and make sure that works. So you can kind of guarantee it's across the board.
Now, these devices sort of, again, we're saying the kind of, switches and, Pro AV, but they're in a kind of large organization. You're going to have a network. It's probably from a large networking. It's one of those things you don't get fired for putting in, IBM or whatever, but you don't get fired for putting in a large, network. You can do other stuff with this. It's not just a dedicated AV device. Netgear have a whole range of other enterprise class switches and routers as well. And this, I guess, dovetails into that. And, I guess you've got single management interfaces for all of that, which, provides a huge advantage of having that, whole estate platform.
Absolutely. Yeah. Netgear has been in business for over 26 years. So we do know a couple things about networking and a wide range of managed switches, as well as the more simple, just, run and gun, if you will, whatever you want to call them, so unmanaged switches, or plus switches. Yeah. So, and I think most every business has had a little purple switch forever. So we have those for sure, but for the managed switches, and we have people that will buy a cheap switch and can kind of get it working, but it really isn't designed for AV. So then they call us and they have problems and everything else. Like, well, how much is your time worth? This is going to work. This is what we promote. They're a little more expensive than the other unmanaged switches for sure, but you're going to get the job done. And yes, we do have a management interface. So that software I mentioned earlier that's built into the switches, we actually pulled out to a standalone application. So that is able to be used on multiple switches. You don't have to log into each switch and set everything up, because that gets kind of annoying too.
Yeah.
So we have that kind of management software, and we have other things like, business grade wireless access points and our Insight remote management for those and for other unmanaged switches, or for the other non-AV switches, I should say. So yeah, we have all that stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I was going to ask you, again, I think we covered a lot of it, but again, why Netgear? Why would someone go for Netgear versus? I hate, I'm not going to use any competitors. No. But why would someone go for Netgear? I mean, rather than someone else. Give me the why. Again, I think we covered most of it, but just give us the elevator pitch on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's several things, Neil. One of them, it's the switches that are optimized for AV. So they're out of the box, they're going to work more efficiently and better than other non-AV switches. The M4250 line looks better than a regular IT switch in a rack. We have a desktop model, 2 desktop models. The fans can be turned down or maybe even off in some situations. if you don't need PoE power, things like that, or it's cool enough. They have different mounting holes on them, so you can plug a um, plug a bolt in there and mount it to the back of a truss or something, or behind a monitor if you want. Those little things, those little details, make those really be more of an AV appliance that's suited for many opportunities. But really, I think it comes down to stuff like this. It's attention. We're paying attention to the marketplace. Our partnership with Crestron and others show that we actually want to play, and we'll give the attention to make sure this stuff is set up correctly in the marketplace. And we have a free design team available. So we know that AV people like you and I may not know how to set up a switch, or know what switch is right, or what are fiber uplinks, how much do I need between those two switches, how do I set up multiple switches. So you can email our Pro AV design team at netgear.com, that's the email address, and within a couple hours, sometimes less usually, you can get someone to help figure out what you need, how to install it, work with you then throughout the job. And we've had guys over the weekends, they understand you're on a job behind a screen somewhere at a Top Golf or whatever and need some help. So they'll be there to help you throughout the whole installation process. That's something you really can't get from any other manufacturer, that level of support.
Now, it's interesting you said about obviously the partnership with Crestron, but we were talking earlier. We're good friends with Shaw, and again, you're not just working with us. There are a whole raft of different AV providers. Again, not just from video but from audio, and working to make sure that this stuff works out the box and that customers get that experience, that's simple and easy to set up and deploy. But then that experience day-to-day and reliability day-to-day. Again, talk to us about the partnerships that you've working with the likes of Crestron and Shaw, and again, what that means to the customer.
Yeah, it's been outstanding. At ISE just a few weeks ago, we had probably over 60 booths, I think 50 or 60 booths with our switch on the booth, mostly on display because they're proud to show that switch. But beyond that, our list is up to probably about 200 officially certified partners.
Wow.
That's listed on our website, where we've actually taken their equipment, from a bird dog camera, NDI camera, to Bolin, to Shure Audio, like you mentioned, QSC, Aurora, ZV, some of the members of the SDVOE organization too. So, wide range of use cases, a wide range of manufacturers. We're open. We're just a plumber. We're just a network plumbing.
I think you're a little bit. You're not just a plumber. You're a lot more than a plumber. But I guess that's a good analogy for getting the point across.
You can get your fancy faucets from whoever you want. We don't care, but you're going to have good plumbing. So you got to have it.
Well, again, that's the thing. I think you mentioned NVX. We're sending across up to 8K resolution of video. We were demonstrating ISE, and it is the time. There's literally no lag. There's no latency from getting it from point A and point B when you're running video walls and multiple streams. You can't have one screen lagging behind. Again, that reliability and that capability to be able to send that stuff at such a high resolution, such a high bandwidth across the network is something that we rely on. And again, you've done an amazing job to help support us on that.
Yeah, and our technicians, when you talk to our Pro AV design team, they've worked with hundreds of clients, so they probably have used the same equipment before that you're working with and know little tips and tricks to make sure it's optimized. So it's a good thing all around.
Now, give us if a customer's looking for a switch or whatever, give us your sort of top 3 things to consider and look at when looking for a Netgear device.
Well, really, it's how many switches do you need? What's your whole topology look like? Because we can't just tell you, you need this switch. We need to look at the whole use case. You want to build in headroom always, future-proof, those things like that. So like to that end, one of our switches is a great modular switch, where you can add in a whole cartridge and module, hence the name modular, for 40 gig ports for PoE. You can add PoE plus. Those sort of things are great for flexibility for future proofing. But it's really just make sure you take a look at the entire network and then build in extra headroom above that. People have been used to doing that for years for audio, certainly. So it's the same sort of philosophy, I think, for AV.
Nice. And where can people find out more information? You mentioned the design service, which is free. We love free. But where can people find out more details about this Pro AV range? Is there a specific Pro AV site, or do they just go to netgear.com? How does it work?
Specific thing, Netgear has that whole consumer side for sure. We've been in business forever. And the business side, easiest way is go to netgear.com/AV. That's pretty easy.
Yeah, I like it. I've got the hat that says it. John, thank you ever so much. Now, we're going to see you. You're NAB. I don't do NAB anymore. I used to do IBC and NAB back in the day, but don't do that. But I will see you over at Infocom. So if you are visiting any of the trade shows, do make sure you go and check out the Netgear booth. Go and have a look at their devices. Go over to the Netgear Pro AV as well, and netgear.com/Pro AV, and have a look at the devices. And again, reach out to the team if you've got any questions around the design service as well. John, thank you for getting up early and joining us here on CresTV. I'm sure we will get you back, and I'm looking forward to hooking up with you at Infocom.
Great, Neil. Appreciate it. I'll see you in June.
Fantastic. And thank you all for joining and tuning in to this episode of CresTV, where I've tried to get out of my depth talking about networks. It's been a while since I've done this kind of stuff. So, but I am expecting one of the Netgear Pro AV switches. So maybe we'll do an unboxing and I'll take you through it. So if you've got questions, if you've got things that you want to see in that video when mine turns up, do put a comment down below and we'll cover that off. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, do all that usual kind of YouTube stuff, and we will catch you on the next one.